So, hello everyone. Today we have a very unusual podcast. As you know, usually podcasts are done in Russian language and sometimes they are not published in English at all. And usually when we do podcasts, although we're making this through Zoom, if you didn't know that, you can't see our faces. But today is a very special podcast because Oscar, my guest, has prepared a presentation which we are going to look at, and also we're going to discuss very interesting things for which I think visual may be very helpful. Oscar, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, thank you, Alexander, for inviting me. My name is Oscar Cepeda. I'm a QA automation specialist with more than 12 years of experience, and I currently work as a QA automation expert.
Awesome. So you're currently working in test automation. Do you mind sharing if you're a manager or individual contributor?
Yeah, I currently work as a manager, but I also work as a test automation developer because I like coding. So I do both, kind of do both.
All right. So the reason why I decided to invite you was your experience with test automation frameworks. And you might not know that, but I am quite prominent for being opposed to test automation framework idea, which is also funny because I have a big series of articles and publications on test automation framework architecture. But still, I think that if we use framework, something is going wrong. So you can probably see this on my channel. There is this slogan, need a framework, you do it wrong. But you say that in your case, framework was very beneficial. So it would be very helpful if you can just give me a brief understanding. What was the thing and why framework, why nothing else? And yeah, basically I would really love to know your perspective on this.
We were hired by an important health tech company that offers an online symptom checker and triage platform that asks some questions, and based on the answers of the patients, they drive them to the proper healthcare path, including GP consultancies, appointments with GPs or nurses, ambulances, and a lot of advices to the patients. It was a very complex product and business because they had a very complex algorithm that was provided by the national government service. They had some manual test cases without much important information when we arrived there, and the regressions were taking 4 to 6 hours, and they had some automated test cases, but using a record and play tool, but they were only testing the basic flows of like login, password recovery, and all that stuff, and they were not testing properly the core business of the app, that was this symptom checker and triage platform. We also didn't have much time because the application was not being tested properly, and we needed to implement a test automation solution very quickly. And as I said before, we didn't have even the manual tests, and we didn't have much time to implement that. When we firstly start reviewing what we needed to do, we realized that they had a web and mobile application. As I said before, they had this complex algorithm with all the questions and the answers, and not only the questions and the answers, but also the combination of those questions and answers that could drive you to the proper diagnosis. We needed to do database validations because the way that the application was developed is that the development team was consuming this algorithm and storing these questions and answers and paths into a database that was changing constantly. We had to set up a lot of preconditions before executing any tests, and we needed to QA both the front end and the back end. The front end because we needed to verify that all the flows in the application were working properly, and it was a product request that we make sure that the front end was working properly and as they expected, and the backend because we decided to create automated tests of the symptom checker on the backend, like validating these questions and answers and their combinations, driving to the proper diagnosis by pointing to the API. The main challenge was what to use. In this case,
Sorry, can I just jump in this question? If you go back to the previous diagram, there's something I'd like to ask. So there was a backend which I guess was the same for web and mobile, was it?
Yeah.
Alright, and the complex algorithm, I think you mentioned that this was not the one they developed. It was something provided to them by some other people, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. The national service.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, please go on.
Okay. And the main challenge was what to use. Well, we had two challenges. The first challenge was to develop the entire QA strategy because we didn't even have enough information in the test cases, so we needed to find the information from the product team and develop these test cases and also implement a test automation solution. Why did we decide to implement a framework? Because for other clients we did develop a framework based on Python, and as I said before, we didn't have enough time, and we did have this framework was working properly. This is what it was being maintained very often, and our team was confident by using this framework. So we decided to go by that. Of course, we needed to create new integrations because the database was created using SQL Server. We needed to integrate the framework with Zephyr, for the test management. We needed to create integrations with this algorithm. When we started seeing the more granularity, the app, we saw that the development team already had a lot of unit tests developed. So and they had a good coverage of the app using unit tests. So we decided to create a strategy that was aligned to the development strategy, and we decided to focus on the automation of the API and the UI. So that's why we decided to use the test automation pyramid. That I know for some people it might be that some people might differ about if use it or not. For some others might result useful. For us, this is what worked, and it worked pretty well because we could align with the unit tests that were already developed. And as I said before, since we didn't have enough time and we did find this unit test, this was very helpful for us to implement.
Okay, and I just have an interesting question. So the development team, were they collocated with you or were they somewhere else?
They were in another country. We were in contact. Of course, I was in contact with the development manager. With the product and project manager, we could realize that we needed to build up this QA strategy that was aligned to the development strategy, because the development team had a good coverage, as I said, of the app with this unit test, and the app was working properly. The development process was working. The thing that we needed to improve was the QA.
Okay. Right. And when you mentioned 6 hours regression, was it using manual testing or what?
Yeah, manual testing.
Okay.
They were using manual testing and some automated tests using a record and play tool.
Okay.
But these test cases were for me it was they were useless because they were not using the proper best practices, and also they were not maintainable, and they were only testing the login, logout, password recovery, and all that stuff. And the main core of the business was this symptom checker and triage platform, and they were not, these automated tests were not testing that. And this algorithm was very hard to test, was very complex, and that's why the manual testing regressions were taking from 4 to 6 hours. Okay. So it was a very big challenge. As I mentioned before, we decided to go with this framework. This was built in Python. We didn't have the integration with Appium, but we decided to use Appium for the mobile automation, and we integrated this to the framework. We also created an integration with SQL Server to do all the validations of all the questions and answers and their combination to get to the proper path. That the proper path, we were also validating that the proper path was showing what it was supposed to show. We did the API automation with Python purely. We used the test data management using XML files. Yeah, the few test cases that they had were written in Zephyr, and they wanted to keep using Zephyr, so we created an integration with Zephyr. And the development team, as I said before, they were having a strong process on the development. So and they were using CircleCI. So we decided to align to that and use CircleCI. So that was my first time actually using CircleCI, and we decided to use them to run the test as they were using them to use the unit tests.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, and to be honest, it was a very hard decision what to use, because it is actually a complex business. We needed to use to create automated tests that didn't last that long, because it was very important to send product and features updates every 2 weeks, every sprint. So we decided to go with this, and it worked for us. I know it is controversial. There are many tools that can be used. There are other strategies that can be applied. This was what worked for us. And it helped us because we could, as I said before, we didn't have enough time, and we needed to create the manual test cases that or get the information from the product team. We needed to automate those test cases, and we also needed to test the application, because the application was already being built up. So we needed to do all that in parallel. And as a result, we can see these benefits. We managed to automate 800 mobile web and API tests using multi-browser executions, using data-driven testing, as I said before, the XML. We created an integration with SQL Server and to do all the validations of the symptom checker, of the questions and answers and the combinations to get to the proper path. We managed to set up all the preconditions that before every test execution, because, as I said, every patient needed to fill up some information before they get to the symptom checker. So these preconditions were set up using the framework. We also created an integration with Zephyr for the test management that also allowed us to have some metrics, and we also created an integration. Yeah, we used the integration that the development team had with CircleCI and adapted to our framework. As I said before, this was our first time working with Circle CI, but it was good because we had the help of the development team. We had an online and email reporting that was very good because this was asked by the management team of the company. And of course, the main benefit is that the core business was being properly tested. And by core business, I mean the symptom checker and triage platform.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very interesting indeed. And there are a couple of things that I wanted to discuss. First of all is, as I understand, you can't share the name of the company that you've been doing a service for. But is it something big? I just want to know. Like, do you think I can use this in Europe?
Yeah, it's big. It's a a very important health tech company, and it was when we were working there. It was a startup, and then they became very big.
All right.
They are now a leader on their side.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I know that not every country has their own application that will take symptoms and then provide an assessment, and obviously not in every application has integration with GP and ambulance. So that sounds just great, and I can imagine how helpful it is and how important it is, especially now when we don't always have an access to GP, and sometimes we need to ask about something. I don't know. I don't have a head anymore.
Yeah.
Should I call an ambulance or what? But what I want to discuss is the reason why I not particularly insist, but probably suggest try and avoiding using frameworks is because what I think is that developers, hopefully not including myself, they are getting lazy in writing automated tests, and instead they are outsourcing this to other people or sometimes to other companies. And I was listening to your presentation, and what you were saying were making perfect sense when you mentioned that the developers were not in the same company. But what I would like to ask you, do you think it was possible for them to write automated tests if they just did this themselves? Do you think they will be able to do that?
Yeah, definitely they could do that. Of course, with the help of some QA specialists, because they needed to know how to test the application.
Sure.
But yeah, they could do that if they have time, because also they were running behind the wheel with deadlines, and they didn't have enough time to create this automation.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So what I'm thinking now, and that's very good that we have this discussion, is that there is not black and white things. It's that in different circumstances, different things work well or not so well. And I'm thinking that I might be a little bit, let's say, hasty or harsh with my fight against estimation frameworks. But I do get a point that there are quite a few situations where it can be useful. And I also, from your presentation, think that you might be a very good person to talk with if, for example, I'm a developer having this kind of situation. So that's good stuff. But architecturally wise, do you think you can describe what the framework was and what kind of layers or components it had?
The main runner of the test was Circle CI.
Sure.
We were using a Selenium WebDriver to work with the UI, and Python as a main language. We had two main layers.
Okay.
one layer was the framework layer that had the common libraries, the driver script, the scheduler, and the reporting stuff. That was the core of the framework.
Okay.
And another layer that was the automated test suites. We had the automated test, we have the data libraries and with the input and all the test management, the common business automation scripts. We have the page object in that layer as well, the page object model for the test of the UI. And we had a configuration of the global variables. And then we had let's call it another layer that was the execution per se to the applications that were in this case a web and mobile application.
Okay. And there is, I believe that the tests for the mobile and for web version, they were pretty common, right? I wonder, did you manage to reuse the same test for different platforms, or you had to write different? Oh, so you managed to do that.
Yeah, we managed to do it and to execute the test as well in multi browsers.
Okay, so
because
I can...
sometimes the core business didn't need to be tested mobile or web, because we needed to test this symptom checker and these questions and answers. So and the mobile and web application were using the same algorithm. So
right.
we pointed to with Python directly to the API and directly to the database to get the comparison of both.
Okay.
And for the front end, of course, we managed to make the front end test run in web and also mobile.
Okay.
By using Appium.
All right. And when you were running a front end test, would you work out an API or would you use a real one?
No, we were using the real one.
Okay. I wonder if it was fast enough. So after you have added this automation, how long the regression would take?
1 hour and 35 minutes or 30 minutes. All the tests.
90
but let me tell you something. As I told you, we were using the test automation pyramid. So most of our tests were on the API, not on the front end. So we were only and as I said, the core business and most of our tests were testing the symptom checker with the API directly, not in the front end. So that's why our tests were not taking that long.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds so good. Folks, what I'm going to add here is that it was a very interesting presentation, and obviously there is no silver bullet, and every situation is very unique. And even though I still think that we should expect from developers to do their own automated testing, or fair amount of automated testing, obviously with the help of someone who knows how to do the QA stuff, right? If you, by any chance, not in this position, and for example, I don't know, like with this particular case when you're trying to run ahead of schedule or something, then you can speak with Oscar, and obviously from this discussion we should be all confident that Oscar knows his own stuff, and well, so sometimes you need a framework. It's not wrong,